I told you. Because you rely so much on the power of others, it makes your attacks simplistic. So even someone like me can dodge them.
Oh, my attacks are too simplistic? I appreciate the crappy advice. Thanks, but these simplistic attacks are gonna kill you!
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we tackle a season of an anime that tends to be new, and we go through episode by episode and give our thoughts on them. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me tonight is my lovely wife, Andrea, of course. Andrea, we actually just barely got back from a vacation when we're recording this, so it's going to be interesting, because here's the deal. We watched the episode, then we went on vacation, and now we're recording it.
Yep, that's how it goes.
Our lives are weird. So today we're going to be talking about Shield Hero Season 2, Episode 6, Racing to Catch Up. And this is basically the, dare I say, the climax of the Spirit Tortoise arc here. Because we basically go to the final battle now that we know that Ost is the core, and we are in the core chamber, having the fight with Kyo. I think that was his name, right? Kyo, the book hero.
Something like that.
Should have been the tome hero. It really should have.
Well, you could just name it the Tome Hero.
I'm calling him the tome hero. I think that's a better thing to do. So we kind of have two things going on in between, and eventually becomes a third. One, we're with Naofumi and crew while they are fighting Kyo. And the second part is we will occasionally snap back to the Queen and the armies of, or the last alliance of men and elves, I guess, is the best way to look at it. The army against the now revived Spirit Tortoise. So they cut off its head, they killed the heart, but unfortunately, you're supposed to do that and kill the core. And then the Spirit Tortoise can die. Seems to me like it's a tad complicated to kill the raid boss. Am I wrong? Somebody engaged the hard mode and didn't tell anybody.
Well, it's like, wow, you got to kill those two bosses in that one room.
I just love the concept. I was like, okay, first of all, you need to decapitate it. Okay. Second, okay, that didn't work. You got to kill the heart. Okay, we killed the heart. Oh, we have to kill the core. But it just so happens that the reason that Ostori was telling the shield hero to kill her was because she is the soul or the core of the Spirit Tortoise. It seems to me like a lot of work was put in where it didn't need to be. And of course, Kyo's laughing at all of this, right? So we now have our new goals, and also we learn through Kyo basically monologuing and saying how great he is and everything like that. We also learned that he has gained a secondary power source from, aside from the Spirit Tortoise, in order to keep the defenses of the tortoise running, which just so happens to be the spear, the bow, and the sword heroes. So he captured them, and he is siphoning power from them so that he can continue to protect himself. I'm guessing also from the Spirit Tortoise's defenses, but also so that he can control the tortoise. So occasionally we will see him sap energy from them, and we get to see them getting tortured, which, no, I didn't care. I like the sword hero. I kind of like the bow hero. I don't like the spear hero. Spear hero creeps me out. So the fact that he was getting tortured, not all that disappointed. Just saying. So at that point, we now find out that that's the problem. But the other thing is that now we have another problem, because using the various heroes' energies, Kyo erects a barrier around the core crystal. So at that point, what was already very complicated just got even more complicated, because now you have to take off its head, kill its heart, take down the barrier, and then destroy the core.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it just so happens that Kyo has control of the Spirit Tortoise, which means he has access to all the various powers of the spirit tortoise, and he's actually the one who has been controlling all the familiars at this point. So that's one of the powers he gets. He's been controlling them. But also, if people remember, we mentioned this, Ost had some really awesome gravity magic that she was able to use. Guess who else can use it? And Kyo, after initially using his book, which was an interesting scene, because he points out that he is the book hero, or the tome hero. And I don't know if you noticed this, he was either shaking with rage or the book was actually trying to fight him because it didn't want to do these evil actions. And so he actually did try to use the book initially, and it didn't really pan out. So then he used the siphoned gravity magic from the spirit tortoise to basically hold everybody down. And this includes the just got there Lark, Therese, and Glass, who are also being held down by the gravity magic. So at this point, he's won. Nobody can get out of the gravity magic. And everybody's ready to die. In fact, one of the things that keeps happening is Kyo is constantly mentioning that he is so much better than the shield hero and continues to stomp his face into the ground while Naofumi continues to mock him, and it really does bother him. Seriously, was he triggered much by everything that Naofumi was saying to him?
Apparently so.
It was actually kind of sad to watch because I did like him as a villain, but he is unhinged. He is very unhinged. It's very clear that he's got a bit of a power trip complex, and he's got a tad bit insane. So at that point, it looks like all is lost until out of the blue, RISHIA gets up and actually fights Kyo. And the explanation is...
Nobody knows.
If people have mentioned... No, because we do know. If we've been listening to Kung Fu Grandma, she says numerous times that RISHIA is very expert at manipulating her own ki.
Oh, okay.
She just doesn't know she can. And because she wants to save the beard hero. Yeah, that's going to be a new one. The bow hero. And she doesn't want to feel like a burden to the shield hero. That's what causes her ki manipulation to kick in. And she then fights Kyo now that her ki is basically protecting her. And so we get to have a little bit of a snazzy fight between her and Kyo, which is kind of interesting to watch. I do have a problem, though. And that is, like, Kung Fu Grandma has been saying this entire time, oh, she's an expert at ki manipulation. She just doesn't know it yet. And then out of the blue, boom, she just starts using it. You didn't think you could build that up and show her getting better? I'm sorry, but this is a Captain Marvel situation, boys and girls. You were awesome the whole time. You just didn't know you were awesome. And that's a little bit of a beef that I have with this scene. It's like, it does look good, and RISHIA gets to have a good moment, but we're not building to it because we're constantly mentioning how weak and pathetic and useless she is the entire freaking time over 5 episodes. And we're all just kind of sitting there going, okay, well, what are we going to do? Oh, but she has potential. We don't see it because she's too weepy. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
She's very weepy, and she doesn't showcase any ki manipulation. We don't see any hintings of her ki manipulation, and I could easily fix that, but unfortunately, this is what happens. And so she basically goes from being this wimpy, constantly scared girl to being way overconfident and basically being Super Saiyan Goku against Frieza. And no, I'm not kidding. The look is very similar. So, like, she has that elitist stare of, like, I'm going to take you down now, and Kyo is very afraid. So...
It's just amazing how she just...
He's got a vassal weapon. I don't know why he's afraid. He even uses it against her, and it does seem to be a problem. So at that point, it would have been better if A, we showed the key manipulation better, and also it was more of a legit fight.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since Kyo could threaten Rishia numerous times. Hey, you know the boy that you have the hots for? I'm taking power from him and life. If you hurt me, I will hurt him. Kind of thing. And this doesn't really happen, guys. It doesn't really happen. After the gravity magic is beat, then Kyo's like, what do I do?
You don't know.
It's the dumbest thing ever. Now, we're going to cut back to the army, because now the events there kind of matter. The tortoise is getting ready to... He's basically pelting them with the spike attack. Endlessly. And it's okay, because Vittoria arrives on the scene. And Vittoria can stand toe-to-toe with him. Although, the funniest thing is that now we don't have the massive chocobo form. We have a smaller, faster version, and I wonder if that's intentional.
Do you think she was more the same size as Philo?
Maybe a little bigger? Maybe. It's difficult to determine because of poofiness. Mm-hmm. But like about Philo's size. Mm-hmm. And she is basically bouncing back and forth, putting up shields to protect the armies from the various spike attacks. She eventually... or the armies basically say, all we're doing is adding extra weight onto Vittoria. We'll get out of here so that she can do her job. And then through Philo, Vittoria basically says, like, well, I'm out here, so I can take care of the head. I can cut that off very easily. But we need to do this all at the same time so that we have the appropriate amount of time to take down the barrier and also take down the core stone. So she's basically bouncing into this huge stalemate with the spirit tortoise. Cut back in there. Now that Kyo is properly at his ass kicked by Rishia, the gravity magic no longer is having any hold. And so at that point, while they are making these plans, Larkin crew decide to go and look for the heart so that they can kill them at the same time. Naofumi has Philo follow them so that they can coordinate. And they actually begin to focus on the barrier of the core crystal, which at that point, Naofumi then pulls out the Shield of Wrath. That's what it was. So the anger shield that he has gained, the thing that makes him all broken and shit. And he gets ready to do the blood sacrifice ability, which, wrecked him the last time, and that now, not Naofumi, Raftalia has been telling him not to do, because it basically left him at death's door.
Pretty much almost killed him.
Yeah, I think even in the interface, you saw he went down to 1 HP.
Oh, yeah.
That he was near death. So at that point, he tries to summon up the blood sacrifice, and nothing happens.
Because he doesn't have the hate anymore.
Because he doesn't have... Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have the hatred anymore. So he can't use the Shield of Wrath anymore, which, Raftalia obviously is very happy about. But it's okay, because Ost has come up with a solution. And I'm trying to remember, how did they beat the Wrath Shield? Or not the Wrath Shield, but the actual shield around the core crystal. Because it wasn't this attack. It might have been RISHIA that actually beat the... It might have been RISHIA that actually beat the barrier. Oh, yeah, because she beat up Kyo, and so Kyo couldn't power the barrier. So at that point, they have the core right in front of them, and Ost now gives Naofumi the ability to use the Spirit Tortoise shield, which is kind of the new shield he's been using this whole time, but it had hidden features that we didn't know about, which Ost then unlocks, which is now the Spirit Tortoise Heart Shield. And basically, it becomes a ginormous angel arm gun, and they fire it at the core crystal, which in turn, at the same time with Vittoria and Lark's crew, they all beat the spirit tortoise, and Ost is dying because she is connected to the spirit tortoise. And so at that point, yay, the day is saved, except Kyo, when Lark Lark basically books it as soon as they kill the heart, because they want to capture Kyo. And Kyo immediately sees the writing on the wall, says, F you guys, screw you guys, I'm getting him. And he decides to leave, and Lark promises Naofumi, along with Therese and Glass, that they will find Kyo, and they will punish him for what he has done. And also, because he still has a vial of souls that were captured during his tenure as controlling the spirit tortoise. So they will also bring those souls back. Now, all the souls that they don't have, that he doesn't have, they're all returned. So at that point, you don't have to worry about that particular aspect, but he does have a little vial that now they need to go bring back to this world so that they can free those souls. Except here's the problem. Naofumi wants to go with. He doesn't want to just leave it with Lark. He wants to solve it himself. But he then realizes, which I actually thought was cool and kind of weird, apparently the cardinal heroes are different from vassal heroes because they are not allowed to leave Melremark. They're not allowed to leave that world. They don't have the proper permissions or whatever, but it's okay because Ost, in her dying breath, gives him permission to be able to leave. So he leaves with Raftalia, Rishia, and Philo as they go off to chase Kyo, and Ost slowly dies, wishing that she may be able to be reborn as one of their true comrades. And that's basically the episode in itself. So it's kind of the climax to the Spirit Tortoise arc. What did you like about the episode, Andrea?
I think it was kind of funny just to see them all try to take down the spirit tortoise simultaneously with everything.
Okay, so the level of coordination that needed to be involved here.
Oh yeah.
I will also admit that they also did a great thing with Vittoria, where they showed that she was using a lot of energy. They also kind of teased that she's still kind of holding back. She could have easily been doing a ton of damage to the spirit tortoise, but obviously she needed to hold back so that they could do the simultaneous attacks. But even then, she makes it look so easy that at that point, like, she could have done that at any point. So it just kind of gives that big hint that maybe we still haven't fully seen the abilities of what Vittoria can do. So I did like that.
And it's just very ironic that they like end up working together even when they were like, I don't want to work with you because but they ended up doing it anyway.
Well, they had no choice because Kyo was basically against them and there was only one way to win, which was to work together. So I did like that. They basically made the stakes so high that they had to work together, which means Naofumi had to get over his bullshit. Because in the moment they needed to get it done. I did also like that Kyo smartly grabbed other vassal heroes and siphoned power from them.
Don't you mean the cardinal heroes?
I'm still going to call them that because they still refer to the shield as a vassal weapon.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, I mean, there's probably a distinction, but we don't know what that is. So at that point, like, it was cool to see him go, oh, this world has other vassal heroes. I'll just steal them and use their energy, just in case I need it. Because something tells me that the book hero or the tome hero, yes, he has quite a bit of power. But like I said, I wonder if the tome is actually fighting against him. Because there was a point where it looked like it was not, like when he was trying to open it to attack and it wasn't letting him open it. And I almost wonder if the vassal weapon had a life of its own, and it said, no, I'm not letting you do this because you're not using me properly. So at that, I did like that concept. And, you know, the vassal weapons do have a purer cause, but cannot help when they are used by corrupted individuals.
That's true. Or hopefully he isn't like some guy who stole...
And so as backup, what did he do? He stole a bunch of, like, he took the souls that the spirit tortoise had, used them as his own magic, siphoned energy from the other cardinal heroes. Like, that's what you would do. Because you can't afford to fight your vassal weapon in the middle of a fight. So at that point, you find other means to be able to give yourself power. And that did make sense. And it also just showcased how off his rocker Kyo actually is. Enough so that I really want to see him come back. I want to see him come back as a villain. Anything else good that this did for you?
Well, I mean, it was still kind of awesome to see Rishia manage to.
The scene is cool. I will give you all of that. And in fact, I will fix it when I get to that point. But yeah, Rishia's scene is cool, but
it was,
to me, it is a payoff with no buildup.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my problem.
It's just too bad that it didn't,
or little to no buildup. Like, there's very little. The series goes out of its way to make us think that she's just uber weak instead.
Well, it's like it was nice to see her actually make up her mind and actually go with the shield hero through the.
And we actually did see her use her sword, her wind magic, so she was able to still work towards her own strengths. But the funniest thing is I forgot to mention this, but the oh crap, what are they called? The filial costume that she had, that gets destroyed in this whole process, and that's when she's able to do the key manipulation. So at that point, it kind of gives the impression that the suit was holding her back a little bit.
Who knows?
Like, it was a little bit of a restraint. Basically, like, it was leg weights for her. So I'll agree with you. I think it's a good scene. I just think that there's very little build up to a payoff. And that's where I'd fix it, is I would make it interesting and build up to it properly. Any other positives?
I mean, except for, Kyo actually, trying to find a way to manipulate the turtle was kind of...
That was kind of cool. I also did like the scene with Naofumi. Naofumi being an actual hero and standing his ground against the crazy psychopath by continuing to taunt him was actually pretty good. Because each time he did it, he got stomped to the ground even further, and so you saw, like, the blood kind of slowly go down his face in the process.
Oh, yeah.
So at that point, like, that was cool to me, because it shows Naofumi doesn't give up. And he's not going to give up, given the situation. So I was happy about that. Okay, we've gone through the positives. Let's get through the negatives. What did this episode do wrong, Andrea?
Well, I think we already talked about one about, just Rishia, just, all of a sudden.
So what did you find wrong with that?
Well, it would have been nice to see more scenes with her trying to use her key, manipulation, but never really did see much.
See, here's how I'd fix it. First of all, you can have the friendship with Ost. You can do that. But I wouldn't make her admire Ost so much. I think it would have been a better thing to see her training in the background. Like, like off in the background, you could see her barely because of the campfire. You see her in the suit, or maybe not in the suit, where she's trying to either learn key manipulation, or she's trying to, like, she's swiping a sword or punching or whatever to show that she's trying to get stronger. I think that would have been a great thing on those campfire scenes. And maybe to help bolster that, when Kung Fu Grandma is explaining to people that she's an expert at key manipulation, let's see it through Kung Fu Grandma's eyes. Like, what does key manipulation look like? And show, like, the aura around her, and either it's getting stronger or it looks like she's getting better at manipulating it. But I would still keep Kung Fu Grandma stone-faced. Because she doesn't want to she doesn't want her to stop training. She wants her to continue to work hard so that she then can gain even greater mastery out of it. I think that's how you fix it ultimately. Instead of having her pine over the bow, well, you could show her pining over the bow hero a little bit. Instead of having her pining over Ost, do that. Like actually show her trying to get better, which is something that we only got to see in like the first couple of episodes, where she constantly was emphasizing, I want to get better. I want to be able to be useful to the shield hero. I want to be able to help the bow hero. I want to be able to do all that, but you didn't show any of that.
But the question is, would you want her to go back with the bow hero at some point?
I wouldn't care. As long as you told a good development arc with her, I wouldn't care. Because then at that point, here's what you could do. When the bow hero gets brought in again, you can have reunions of RISHIA and the crew, and that's kind of what ties Itsuki to getting to know Naofumi.
That's true.
So you could easily do that. But they didn't do that, and instead we went the Captain Marvel route, which was, you're just so awesome. You just don't know you're awesome, but you're totally awesome. God, that's such a horrible storytelling device. Don't tell me you're awesome, show me you're awesome. Because that matters. What did you think of the whole concept of Naofumi no longer had the hate to be able to use the Shield of Wrath? Because they showed him early on he was struggling with it. But now all the hatred that he built up in this world, because things are getting better, he is no longer able to gain access to this power. What did you think of that? Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Because I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because now he doesn't have that power. In fact, it would have been a lot better if we actually did a little bit more with it, where he tried to channel it a little bit more and he started to have problems with using its abilities. And that way you could easily explain Ost giving him a better one, because she even explains, like, I'm giving you this so you don't have to rely on that cursed shield anymore. And instead, it's just like, oh, poof, doesn't work. And then, oh, we're going to give you an even more powerful one, and because you can't use that one anymore. I think it actually would have been a cool thing to have Naofumi going to Raphtalia and saying, I don't think I can use this anymore, because I don't have the hatred anymore. Because that might have been an interesting thing for Naofumi, because then he had to find a different power source instead of just having one instantly put in his hands. Is what I'm basically saying.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you think it was a positive, then feel free. But what did you think of it?
Well, it's kind of nice that, it's like, well, now you don't seem to hate the world as much as you used to, which means you most likely can't rely on it unless there is an absolute way to do it. But
yeah, I just really wish it was. Actually, another thing that would have helped with that is if he couldn't summon the shield anymore. Like, he tries to summon the shield and, like, it starts coming out, but then it goes back. That actually would have been another cool thing, too. But that like I said, it's a double-edged sword, because the Shield of Wrath is not supposed to be a good thing. We're told numerous times it curses people. It's a curse. It does curse damage. It'll hurt your friends. It'll hurt your family. It'll hurt your little doggy. It'll destroy you from the inside. And that's fine, because that's the arc that Naofumi was going through in the first season. I just would have liked to have seen the proper completion of that, where he just he can't feel that hatred anymore and he can't access that shield. Like, it's there, but he can't access it. That would have been a better way to go about it.
But then the question is, do you think he'll relearn how to use it again?
The way that they're going, I don't think so. I think where he's at, and now, they made it very clear the Spirit Tortoise Heart Shield is better than it. I honestly don't think he'll come back to it. Because I think it's actually is accurate. He doesn't have that hatred anymore. Like, he has He has Raftalia and Philo and Rishia to an extent, and Kung Fu Grandma and all the people in Sayet. So he has somebody to rely on. He's not isolated, alone, and full of hatred anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it actually is a good character development for Naofumi, considering that season 1 was all about him fighting that hatred.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. Now, any other negatives before we get into the last bit?
Aside from not seeing what became of the other heroes after they destroyed the core.
Oh yeah, we didn't see them get untied. We don't know what happened to them.
Because otherwise, you don't see them, like, recovering from whatever they were dealing with.
I don't think we did, no.
And whether if they will end up following...
That's an interesting loose end, isn't it?
Going with the shield hero, maybe not at the moment, but maybe eventually.
I don't know if they would have gone with him.
Otherwise, I was like, what's the point of having you guys there?
I don't know. Honestly, because here's the thing, is like now we're embarking on this whole new arc, which means they are now in the background, which means something can happen with them. But I will say this, aside from being used by Kyo, they weren't really involved in this arc, so it's kind of hard to be invested in them. Because they basically early on said, F that, we're not helping.
And yet
and I was actually more interested in learning more about the 7-star heroes, which we never did. As opposed to them, because like they're off being butthurt. And so I was completely turned off by them, as opposed to near the end of season 1 where I started to like Itsuki and Ren. But it's never happening with Spear Hero.
Oh.
I hate the guy, and I don't want to see him anymore. He creeps me out.
Sure.
But let's get into the last bit. So now Naofumi can leave Melremark. They don't imply that he can go home, but he can go to other worlds like Lark and Glasscan. So now I guess we're going to be going into a world hopping arc. How do we feel about that? Because we were confined to this world because of the waves, and now the universe just got a whole hell of a lot bigger. I have no problem saying that. There's a reason I put this in the negative section. I'm a little worried, because when you expand the scope that far, it's very easy to get lost. So at that point, I'm a little worried about where they're going to go with this. But I'm also excited about it because now we have other things that we can look into. Is Kyo the only rogue vassal hero? Or is he working with other people? We don't know. So at that point, it would be cool to be able to go and explore that. But where are you sitting with it now that they're not tethered to Melremark? They're going to go look for Kyo in other worlds.
It'll be interesting, but well, I guess we'll find out where.
Are we wondering at all if there's going to be a cost to that? Will this question popped up in my head when I was watching it. What happens if a wave happens and he's not on his world? Does he get instantly summoned to it?
That's a good question.
I mean, they basically said that the countdown would eventually resume after the souls are returned. So at that point, I guess we don't have to worry about a wave countdown, but it does beg the question, okay, we eat through that time, and the wave starts. Is Naofumi going to get yanked from whatever he's doing, which it might be important, to go fight the wave? And I don't know.
Maybe with the souls being taken by Kyo, the timer won't resume until they return back.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that comes to my mind is like, how does this affect the shield? Do we gain access to even more powers? Are we going to get to like Super Saiyan levels of shield hero, where the power levels are going to get really, really obnoxiously high and very hard to follow? You don't really have to worry about this, son, because you've not really dealt with it in anything you've watched. I mean, maybe Ash in Pokemon, but No, actually no, because like when he starts a new season, he starts fresh. He just has Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I would say no, you don't have to worry about being overpowered. But I kind of want to explain this. I'm a Dragon Ball Z fan. I watched it as a kid whenever I could.
Are you talking about like they like go to another place and then they start all over again? Is that what you're talking about? Or?
Kind of thing, yeah. He doesn't bring his already level 60 Charizard over. I mean, he brought him in at Johto, but then he eventually lost him in favor of getting the other starters. So at that point...
it's just like Kingdom Hearts. They always end up square one again.
Pretty much. And it's a storytelling device that can only be used so much.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. Like,
but
it's
let me explain really quick. Because this is gonna matter in a particular case. In Dragon Ball Z, there were little items called scouters that could actually look at the power that character had and put it into a numerical form.
Mm-hmm.
And so then at that point, that was cool because then you could explain like this is why he's more powerful, and also we also learned a concept where they could hide their Goku could hide his energy so that he would fool his enemies into thinking, oh, he's just got like 100. Oh yeah, he's got 18,000. Kind of thing. And eventually we got to Super Saiyan, which I don't think I need to explain to you.
Yeah.
It's where Goku has the golden hair.
Oh yeah, I know. It's like supersonic sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Supersonic is a ripoff of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that once Super Saiyan came into the mix, Super Saiyan was basically 1 million or like 10 million.
Uh-huh.
And then Goku unlocked, or not Goku, but Gohan unlocked Super Saiyan 2. And then Goku unlocked Super Saiyan 3. And the numbers just got astronomical. And they were actually becoming laughable. Like, we couldn't keep track of them. And it is still a problem that Dragon Ball deals with to this day. Where they continue to create these new echelons of power. And everybody's like, oh, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to have an understanding for that, but all right. And with the shield and the other vassal weapons, we do have this concept. This numerical concept. And that is the shield talent tree. Where he gains new shields based off of what he's doing at that given moment. And one of the things I am worried about in this is now that we're world hopping, are we going to overpower the shield enough to a point where villains are going to have to get really ridiculous in power in order to stand up to the shield hero? And I'm a little worried about that. Because, like, what happens when the shield hero hits Super Saiyan? Oh, but the axe hero comes along and he's like Super Saiyan 2.
Mm.
You get what I mean? Like, once power creep gets so high, it becomes kind of laughable in the fact that it can't be tracked anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm worried about with this a little bit, is when you expand things so much like DBZ did by opening up space, you can come across this problem. And it's still something Dragon Ball is trying to fix to this day.
Mm.
And it doesn't really have a good answer. GT kind of did, but that's why I put it here, is because I think it has possibilities. I think it's a good storytelling medium, and I'm excited to see where they go, but I also know it could get bad very quickly. So I'm a little worried about it. Do you think my worry is warranted, or do you think I'm just being paranoid?
I wouldn't know until we get to it.
Okay. So at that point, we've gone over the positives, we've gone over the negatives. Out of 5, what would you give episode 6 of Shield Hero Season 2? Because I cannot remember. Racing to Catch Up.
I'd probably give it a 4.
Okay. Why is it not getting a 5?
Well, there's just little minor things here and there, and, you know.
RISHIA.
Plus, it's just kind of, it's a disappointment that you have the other cardinal heroes that are now, like, to the background right now. So
yeah.
It's like, what's the point of having them?
I'm gonna go with a 3.5, and the only reason I'm mainly doing it is because the RISHIA situation and this whole thing is a bigger problem for me than I think it is for you. And that's just simply because I like being able to see new thresholds being attained. Being able to unleash them and being able to show like how you've risen in power. And RISHIA it could have been a great example of it, and they just never built it up, which is just sad to me. So 3.5 for me, 4 for you.
Just because how the...
Well, it's not just that, like, you know, because of the RISHIA situation, it hurts the episode as a whole. Because after having the whole thing with Naofumi, you want Naofumi to be kicking Kyo's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Not RISHIA. And then RISHIA starts doing it. It's like, okay, this looks cool, but I mean, what about Naofumi? He's still on the floor, and he was the one that was actually getting under Kyo's nerves. RISHIA did too, but do you see my problem?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it does hurt the episode overall. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So when we come back, we're going into a whole new arc in Season 2. We have 7 more episodes to go. So here's hoping that they can go into this in enough time, as well as being able to give us a good payoff or a good enough climax so that we can get excited for Season 3. But we are hopeful for it. But I guess the other question that I have is, considering how slow the first couple of episodes were, was this a good enough payoff?
It could have been better.
It really could have. And it could have been longer, in my opinion. Like, Kyo needed to have some upper hands in there, but he doesn't get them. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us tonight, for this episode. So thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate all the support that you've given us. If you're brand spanking new, you can follow us on YouTube, Rumble, as well as other podcasting platforms such as Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Player.fm, and you can be able to get all of those and be able to support them however you want to. Please consider liking and subscribing on YouTube and on those podcasting platforms. It really does go an extra long way to help us out. We do appreciate it. And when we come back, the Shield Hero and crew are going to be dealing with a whole other world of possibilities. See what I did there? Until next time, everybody!